Okay. Hey, Lauren. How are you?
Good.
Okay, so we are just going to kind of go through. I'm going to first start out by talking about the things that I saw during your observations and kind of review some of the pre-observation things that we had discussed. So during the lesson, you were doing a small group writing with second graders, and you felt that each of the student was at a different point in the writing process. So they would kind of all be all over. And then you talked about that this was a very large group of students who has different needs, and you were looking for feedback on strategies that you could use with them. And then also you were wondering about the additional adult that's in the classroom and how she was supporting the students. Okay. So, the setup of your lesson was that you had some of the students working with you at your table, and then some of the students working over at the other table with Miss Forehand, the para. How did you decide which students would go to what group?
I picked the students who were in the writing process to write with me, and so I could monitor them writing, and then the students that were brainstorming with Miss Forehand.
Perfect. And so they were using a graphic organizer, right, while they were working with Miss Forehand. Yeah. So throughout the lesson, you checked in with that table, but primarily worked over here with these students. And you were working on having them kind of taking their information from the graphic organizer and putting it into sentences.
Yep.
And how do you think that went?
I think that's a difficult thing to do for them, but overall, I think it went well.
Yeah.
I think working with Linnea right in front of me, she tends to not put things in sentences, so that was a little difficult, but
yeah,
we got there.
Yeah. So it is difficult for students to kind of take that graphic organizer because they would just rather write like that one word onto their paper. Mm-hmm. So you did a good job of like reminding them that it's not just the word that they have in their graphic organizer, putting it into sentences. You did a lot of modeling back or like giving sentence starters. So some of the sentence starters you used were my favorite candy is, my name is. You also did a good job of prompting the students with some questions. So, for example, with Linnea, you first asked her what pets she had, and she didn't respond. So then you said, do you have a cat? And she responded that she has a fish. And so then you asked, do you have a cat and a fish? So did you already know that she had a cat?
Well, I get mixed information from Linnea, so I'm not 100% sure what kind of pet she has.
But you had heard her say that before.
She's probably seen a cat somewhere and has a cat.
So that was good that you kind of gave her a broader question at first, and then you started to see that she wasn't able to answer that. So then you used kind of your background knowledge about Linnea and asked her if she did have a cat. So most of my observation, I was kind of watching Linnea. I know that you and I have talked back and forth about her IEP meeting coming up, and that we are kind of looking to make some changes. So throughout the entire 20 or 30 minutes that I observed, Linnea needed 21 redirects. So she often would just repeat questions, or she was just talking to her peers. She would repeat questions, she would ask you questions, and you did a really good job of like staying calm and answering her questions and bringing her back to work. So what are how do you think that it's going with redirecting her back?
I think I don't notice like how much I probably do it.
Yep.
But it's gotten better as the year has gone on, but I feel like I redirect her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially like at the carpet, or if she's right in front of me at a small group, she wants that attention, I feel like.
Yep.
So she was asking me to redirect her.
Yeah. I'm
redirecting her because she wants that attention.
Yeah.
But she needs to be on task, so.
So what are some different strategies that you've used?
In the classroom lately, it was happening where we would follow her plan and send her to stop and think, but then she started sending herself to stop and think, so that wasn't really working. So now we just send her to her desk instead, so she's still looking at the learning, and that seems to be working to give her that. I don't think she can sit at the carpet as long as other students, so with second grade, it's it's a long time to sit at the carpet now. And
Yeah.
so moving her has been working a little bit.
Good.
But yeah.
So what about in the small group setting?
It's kind of been the same.
Yeah.
But she always gets her task done. It's just needing those prompts,
Mm-hmm.
which is unfortunate.
Yeah. So what is her current adaptive behavior goal?
It's behavior, so I'm looking at changing it to adaptive behavior.
Okay.
But it's 3 redirects and then stop and think.
Okay.
So.
And we know now that isn't working, so that
No.
needs to be adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, something that I also noticed on the table was these different pictures.
Yep.
From Boardmaker. Can you explain kind of how you used those with Linnea?
Well, the idea was, and I have them on here too, that didn't really work either. It works with some other students now because she's smiling and wanting me to say the picture. So it's kind of distracting her a little bit more than I wanted it to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you point to the picture, are you verbally saying it as well?
No, usually I use these probably more so, but
Okay.
going like this.
And then what does she do?
She laughs a little bit and then she'll sit and then she'll wait for if I do another one and she enjoys that I'm redirecting her. So it's been a struggle to find something that
is working for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So during the observation, my focus a lot was on Linnea. But how did you feel the other students did?
I think they did a great job getting started on task with the time we have in writing.
Yeah.
So that went well. And I have a few more that are a little more independent and a group that's not as independent. So
Sure.
I feel like they did a good job staying on task.
Yeah. So the students at your table, did they get their writing completed from the graphic organizer, or do they still have more work to do?
They have a little bit more to do.
Okay, and then
especially, I think it was Elijah. Was he sitting here?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he kind of
Yep.
struggled to get going because
Yep.
needs a little bit more support.
Yep. So then the group at the table, how did they do with completing their graphic organizer?
They finished. I think the only kid that wasn't here was Braden, so he didn't get it done. But
And
he
so
did the next day.
then you will finish up.
Yep.
All of them. Okay. So what strategies do you think that you could use for those students who need more of that support without necessarily being right next to them?
I have, and no one went and grabbed them, but I have portable word wall and different things over here that they can use.
Okay.
So they know where they are, they just didn't grab them.
Yeah.
And then they use those in class. But maybe having some sentence stems where I don't have to say them out loud to them.
Yeah, so that was just something that I kind of thought in my head was that you would work individually and give them the sentence stem, but even if you had started your lesson or after they had done graphic organizing, then made a anchor chart or tried to walk them through the process of I said my favorite candy was this, and then kind of doing some different sentences might have been helpful. That way you aren't always repeating for each student the sentence stem for them. Are there any other activities kind of maybe outside of writing or even within writing that you could build on them creating sentence stems, or some sort of activity or strategy that you could use to get them to kind of do that more independently?
I guess we always write after we read too. So using sentence stems within our post reading.
Yeah. And so do they always use a graphic organizer during their writing?
During the COTAT writing?
Yep.
Not lately.
Okay.
They've been able to brainstorm, and we just brainstorm with a sticky note, or
Okay.
we touch and tell
Yeah.
like they do in class.
Yeah.
So that's been working, and so.
So that might be another strategy that you bring into here. I am assuming that the teacher gave all students a graphic organizer, or did you
For the one that, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the one.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and so maybe sometimes thinking about whatever strategy you've used with them previously in writing in that COTAT time, bringing that over into your small group time. That sometimes it's a consistent way of always starting their writing and then getting started on their writing would be one way also that you could kind of build that independence with them. Another thing that I was wondering about is the para and kind of what what you are expecting for her, or what do you hope that she would be doing with the students during this writing time?
I hope that I had her brainstorming with students, so just if they need if something read to them, then she can read with them, and then also redirecting them to use like our other organizers that they can use, and just helping them use those writing strategies that we use in our small groups, like rereading their writing, stuff that they do in class to be able to do it here, just reminding them that they could use those strategies.
Sure. So when I kind of observed, there wasn't a lot of strategies that she was reminding them of. There was a lot of redirects to get to reread. Like she would reread the graphic organizer, but then there weren't very many strategies of like brainstorming through. And the other thing that I noticed was that the students every time went to her to ask her how to spell a word, and every time she told them how to spell the word.
Okay.
And so something that kind of made me think was that maybe that needs to be just adjusted a little bit. And I was wondering if you could think of some ways that you could support her in supporting the students.
Well, probably need to do more modeling. I feel like that's helpful if she can see what I'm doing.
Yep.
To say, this is how I'd like you to do it in small groups. So just modeling. We need to model more for her.
Sure.
So she can see how it looks.
Yeah. So another thing that I thought of as well would be that maybe the para would be well paired up with Linnea, because then she could have that one-on-one attention as well as the support that she needs, and then you can then rotate a little better throughout the other students. So if you were kind of thinking about, is that something that you've tried or something that you would consider trying?
Yeah, and the reason why I kind of take Linnea in that small group is because she's with her all day.
Sure.
So
sure, that makes sense.
So giving her that time. So I work with Linnea and she's working with other kids.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe just something to try.
Yeah.
And not even that you would have to do it every day, but maybe if you kind of looked through your lessons on days that you know the other students will need a lot of support, then you can maybe pair her up with the para.
Yeah.
And then you would be able to support better. Okay. So looking back, the standards that you were looking at was writing narratives and strength in writing through the revising and editing. How do you think the writing narrative standard went? Do you think that was one that they met?
I guess we weren't really writing narratives. It was just
something about you.
Yeah, and it was something that they're going to share.
Sure.
So they had to, it was kind of like we have to get done so
yes,
that you
for
can share this
conferences.
with your parents next week.
Yep.
So I guess we weren't really writing narratives, but that's what they're doing in class.
Sure.
But we're using the strategies that they're using to write narratives to just
support
overall good writing strategies.
Good. So what were some ways that you helped with revising or editing their work?
I guess just having them go back. It was all verbal.
Yeah.
So just giving them verbal feedback and having them go back and reread.
Yep.
That's something that I'm struggling with in writing, is kind of letting them fail, because I like to hold their hand a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So just letting them go and then going back. So they weren't really had a lot of writing to go back and edit and revise yet.
Sure.
But like having them do that afterwards, so it was more verbal.
Yeah. So what are some strategies that you would kind of look to use when teaching revising and editing?
So they have a checklist.
Okay.
So using those checklists to revise and edit and be able to go through. And I know Danielle has a specific one to like her needs that was given to me by like the OT.
Okay.
So they all use a checklist to go through. And then that in class, I guess I can pull some of those checklists in, but they have the Lucy checklist they go through.
Yep.
Which they've been using well during class. So.
Yeah. So are they able to do the checklist independently and like correctly?
I would say no, not yet.
Okay. So what are some things that you might focus on in your instruction in the classroom as well as in the small group pull out to help in supporting that editing?
Be modeling more in small group how to use those strategies like we do in the classroom, so that they can do it here and we focus on like one specific thing.
Yeah.
And so they have one job to go through and look at their
Sure.
something in their writing.
Yeah. How do you think that the checklist compares to the Lucy? I know that the Lucy is pretty in depth, and
1 page,
yeah,
I guess, so shorter. And looking at these kids, a lot of them are looking at punctuation and like still like capital letters. And making sure sight words are spelled correctly. So
yeah. Have you made the connection with them from like the Lucy checklist to the one that they are using independently, that you guys are still looking at the same skills?
And it does connect, because I think all of the second graders have that one checklist, and they have Lucy's. They are different.
Okay.
So pulling those in here.
Yeah.
I think the only one that uses a different one is Danielle.
Okay.
Has that different one because she's working on still reversals. And so going back and looking at those reversals.
Yeah. And how do you think that the checklists relate back to their IEP goals? Are they aligned well, or is it a little far-fetched?
I think it's the ideas for them. Hi.
Good morning. Okay. We're just doing a little videotaping.
Well, you're not anymore.
Why do you say that?
Well, because you're looking at me.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'll come back.
Okay. Can you ask that question again?
So I was kind of relating the checklist back to their IEP goals. So thinking about their writing goals. Are their writing goals more of that convention, or are they more so like the meaning and organization?
A lot of them have organization. And a lot of them that have met those emergent writing goals are moving more into organization and being able to go back and do things independently on their rubrics. A lot of it's the independence piece moves on the rubric. So I think the checklists align to make sure they're doing those things independently, even if they're needing my support at first.
Sure. Good. Well, Lauren, that is kind of all that I have. So just overall, in thinking about the observation notes that I had sent you and the questions and things that we have discussed, what do you think your next steps will be for this writing group?
I think incorporating some of those different strategies that you're giving me, and then looking at Linnea to work with Miss Borehand a little more during writing, so I can circulate and not have to be prompting so many times.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much, Lauren.
Thanks, Taylor.